Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election, and I'll be giving you an update on the latest polls we have from the most important states that are going to determine the outcome of this election come November. It's been over a week since I think I did a poll video, so it's time to give you all an update. Today we'll be focusing on the Fox News polls that were released last night, and I'm here to tell you all what they mean. So, in case you missed it, last night, Fox News did some more battleground state polling. They focused on the Sun Belt states. They looked at Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina, and they found Kamala Harris leading in 3 of those 4 states. She was up by 1 in Arizona and then up by 2 in both Nevada and Georgia. She was down by about a point in North Carolina. So let's talk about it today. Now, the first thing we got to remember is that this is a relatively good pollster. As you can see on your screen, they're rated an A by FiveThirtyEight. And in 2020, their polls in the summer were a little favorable to Democrats, but by the time the election rolled around, their final polling was pretty accurate, especially because most polls in 2020 had pretty serious misses. Fox News wasn't egregious compared to the other ones we saw. And then in 2022, we saw Fox News had a pretty good year, and that's why they got the A grade from FiveThirtyEight. So that is very important to remember. And again, a lot of people, when they see a Fox News poll, they assume it's going to be Republican leaning because obviously the network itself is one of the most prominent conservative leaning networks in the news networks in the United States. They do an independent pollster. So this is, regardless whether you like or dislike Fox News, this is a very reputable nonpartisan pollster that they sponsor. So again, Harris up by a point in Arizona, and then up by 2 in both Georgia and Nevada. So let's talk about these polls. And again, if we take a look at the polls that they did in July, in the I believe just a week after Joe Biden dropped out, they saw in the Rust Belt a pretty good result for Trump. They did find Kamala Harris up by 6 in Minnesota, but they found her losing by a point in Wisconsin, and then they had a tie in both Michigan and Pennsylvania. And again, Donald Trump only needs 1 of these 2 states. So let's say he wins Michigan. No matter what happened in Pennsylvania, he would probably win the presidency, assuming he also won Wisconsin. So, regardless of what happens, these were very good polls for him. You have to consider that. So, Fox News now showing Kamala Harris leading in states that were actually redder in 2020. Again, Arizona and Georgia were both states that were redder than all of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in 2020. So they show Harris up by 1 and 2 there. And again, this poll is from a month ago, so it's possible that things have moved towards Harris since then. But really, this is I would argue pretty good news for Kamala Harris because she's improving in areas that are a bit more Republican, but that are still very important. Now, obviously, she is down a point in North Carolina, and this comes actually, I would say, amidst a pretty good week of polling for her in North Carolina. She's actually led in 3 of the past 4 polls in the state. But what we do know is that it looks like a dead heat right now in the FiveThirtyEight average. Harris is only down by about 0.2 or 0.3%, so it's very close there. But again, she doesn't need North Carolina to win. If she did win North Carolina, it would be very difficult for Trump to get to the White House. Again, if Harris wins North Carolina and it's early on election night, Donald Trump will have a very difficult time winning or getting 270 electoral votes. But again, Harris needs it less than Trump does. But if she's winning Arizona, if she's winning Georgia, if she's winning Nevada, then she's probably the president because, again, at that point, all she would really need is just 1 Rust Belt state. Again, she can win Georgia as kind of a substitute for Michigan. She can win Arizona and Nevada, which add up to 17 electoral votes. That can be a substitute for Pennsylvania potentially. And then at that point, I believe if she just won, I think, assuming she won Michigan, she'd likely be the president. But assuming that she would also win Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, which is 1 important electoral vote. And again, Donald Trump could potentially, even in a scenario where he wins Pennsylvania, maybe he could lose Wisconsin. So again, the point is Harris doesn't need North Carolina, but she does need 2 of the 3 most likely of Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, assuming she loses the Rust Belt states. There's a lot of scenarios you can kind of play out in your head here. I don't want to visualize them just yet because I just want to focus on the polls for today. But again, what really matters here is that if Kamala Harris loses a Rust Belt state, if she loses 1 of the 3 of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, she needs to win 1 of Arizona or Georgia. It's possible she doesn't need one of them, right? If she just goes 3 for 3 in the Rust Belt, it's good to have a backup plan. And if she loses one of those states, she can make up for it with Arizona or Georgia. It is notable, though, that it depends what state she loses. If she loses Wisconsin, either Arizona or Georgia will do. If she loses Michigan, she needs Georgia or Arizona and Nevada. But if she loses Pennsylvania, she needs both Arizona and Georgia or Georgia and Nevada. So depends what state she loses, but broadly, these are good polls for her because they do show her going 3 for 3 in the Sun Belt. It's been a month since we got a Rust Belt poll. It's possible that Fox News, if they did a Rust Belt poll, they'd show Harris up. But again, the point of this poll, I think, to me, what I'm taking away from it is that Harris, in the important states, based on what we know most recently, would likely win the election if it were held today, if Fox News is correct. And again, it's just one poll. It's important to look at all polls, throw it in the average. But if Fox News is right, if Harris is winning Arizona, winning Georgia, winning Nevada, very difficult to see how she loses the election. And so just to kind of look at these polls one more time, look at the vote shares, because these are always very important. In Arizona, she's at 50%. She's at 50% in Georgia. She's at 50% in Nevada. Then she's at 49% in North Carolina. Not a bad spot to be in here, North Carolina, but again, Donald Trump is doing okay in Arizona. So the states that are actually less close here are Nevada and Georgia, while Arizona and North Carolina are about a point closer each. And so again, it's worth kind of looking at the polling misses historically. And again, I'll be doing more analysis on this as we get closer to election day. But what is important to consider is that these 4 states have had pretty different polling misses. Arizona and Georgia have broadly been pretty good in that if you just looked at the polls for the past 3 or 4 election cycles, you'd just be right most of the time. In Arizona, there has been a bit of a Republican bias. So in 2016, 2018, and 2022, the polls underestimated Democrats, but by very marginal amounts. Then in 2020, they underestimated Trump by about 2%. And then in Georgia, the polls have been very good there. They essentially nailed the 2020 margin. They were good in the midterms, on the runoff. On election day, they actually had Herschel Walker winning, but by the time the runoff happened in December, they had corrected and showed Warnock up by the amount he won by. And then in 2018, they were broadly pretty good as well. They only underestimated Democrats by a couple of points. Then in Nevada, historically, Democrats have actually beat their polls there. In 2016, Donald Trump was ahead in that state. He lost it to Hillary Clinton. In 2018, Republicans were, in allegedly toss-up races in the Senate and, governor's election or gubernatorial elections, and they lost both of those races. And then in 2022, Catherine Cortez Masto was down by a couple of points to Adam Laxalt in that Senate race, and Democrats won by 8,000 votes. It was very close, but Catherine Cortez Masto did win that race. And so in 2020, the polls did miss in Nevada by a good amount, so it kind of swung the other way. But historically, polling misses in Nevada have been very, very bad for Republicans, where they're winning by a couple of points, not even a dead heat. They're winning by a couple of points, and they end up losing on election day. Now, North Carolina is the one state where Republicans, I think, get that benefit of the doubt. In 2016, Donald Trump beat his polls here. 2018, there wasn't a major statewide race, so we can't really hold that against either party. But in 2020, North Carolina, on election day, Joe Biden was up by just under 2 points. He lost the state by 1.3%. In the Senate race, we saw Cal Cunningham, the Democrat, leading Tom Tillis in most pre-election polling by 3-4 points. Cal Cunningham lost that race by over 1.5 points. And then in 2022, Democrats, kind of matched their polls there. Sherry Beasley, the Democrat, outran her polls by just over a point. But again, in 2022, Democrats outran their polls almost everywhere. In Nevada, in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin. In North Carolina, the gap was a bit smaller. So North Carolina, I'd be cautious if I were a Democrat about this state because the polls have been wrong there in the past. Now, you can make a very good case for Kamala Harris winning North Carolina. I'll be talking about that very soon in future videos. But based on the polling miss we know, North Carolina, got to be cautious if you're Democrats. Republicans do still have reason to expect that they can, bring it back home to their column. But again, in Arizona, in Georgia, in Nevada, where Kamala Harris leads, Republicans seem to be in a lot of trouble. Donald Trump, this is not the poll he likely wanted to see out of Fox News. So again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give me your prediction for these 4 states. Who do you think is going to win them? It's possible we see a sweep for Kamala Harris. Also possible we see a sweep for Donald Trump. So again, let me know. Comment down suggestions for the future, and I'll see you all tomorrow.